Hello and welcome to Rich Rides. This week I'm riding the Yamaha Nouvo 135. This is actually a 2011 model and I'll show you what it looks like now. So first off is the seating position. It's physically quite a small scooter, this one. It's certainly not the size of something like a PCX. Where it sits in their range, it's a fairly low spec bike, so you don't get anything special, especially because it's sort of over 10 years old, then you don't even get things like ABS and stuff with it. So as a fairly small bike, then it's okay if there's one of you on it. The seat's quite big, but I've been riding this bike 2 months now. Most of the time it's been with a pillion. It's fine on the short trips, but on the longer trips then I do get a bit of backache if I'm on it for an hour plus and I need to sort of get off and just have a stretch because it is quite cramped. And my pillion's my son, so he's only 9 years old, so with a bigger pillion it would be even worse, I think. Having said that, with a pillion then there's still plenty of power, so it's fine in that respect. So as for controls, then everything's as a normal scooter. So on your left hand side you have your rear brake, your main beam. The lights are on all the time, so it's just a main beam, normal. Your indicator and horn. Then over on the right you've got your starter, accelerator and front brake. So very minimal controls. The dashboard itself has got a proper fuel gauge, so that's good. Speedo, and it has a sort of LCD. You have to get used to these roads in Koh Samui in Thailand sometimes. But yeah, back to what I was saying. Then there's an LCD section of the dashboard, and that has a temperature gauge and the odometer showing how many miles it's done. So this bike's actually done 70-odd thousand kilometres, and as you've seen from the pictures of it, it's been down the road a few times. It's not the best maintained. And again, as I'm perfectly demonstrating timing wise here, it's had a fairly hard life. It's not all smooth tarmac, as you can see here on Koh Samui. So as we are on all this really rough stuff, it's worth mentioning comfort. So the seat itself is actually quite a comfortable seat. Suspension is fairly cheap, I would say. Again, with a pillion on, then the back end bottoms out fairly easily, and the front end, it does soak up the bumps to a certain degree, but the only rattles on this bike, which, like I say, bearing in mind it's a 70,000 kilometre bike that's had a fairly hard life by the look of it, then the only rattle is from the sort of front end from the forks. It's okay at lower speeds, but when you get a bit of speed up, then you can tell when you hit a bump. One of the great things about it is that for a scooter it has really big wheels. So it has 16-inch spoked wheels, which, as you saw from back there and other videos I've done showing some of the roads out here that are basically dirt tracks, it's actually really good for those because you've got a lot of control. Where if you're on sort of a Vespa or something with tiny wheels, you'd be going up and down the potholes rather than over them with these bigger wheels. As far as engine and gearbox are concerned, then like most scooters, it's sort of automatic, variomatic thing. performance, it's a 135, which is a strange number, but it performs well. If you give it a throttle full, then it picks up really quickly and goes. For a sort of standard exhaust, it sounds quite fruity. It's quite cool, really. So yeah, performance wise, it's pretty good. It's not missed a beat in the sort of 2 months I've been riding it. The handling on it is, again, decent for a scooter. It's not as twitchy as a lot of them, which I think is helped with those larger wheels again. Even though the suspension isn't the best, those wheels really help, as you can sort of tell here on these slightly faster, slightly bumpy roads, you do sort of feel it. So the brakes, the rear is a drum and is adequate for what it is. The front is a disc, again is just about adequate. I have struggled at slightly higher speeds on some big downhills where I'd wished I had more braking power. Again with that pillion on, adding weight, going downhill at speed, and I did wish that the brakes were a lot better in a couple of places. So onto my usual positives and negatives. So positives for this bike, I think this is probably true of most scooters, but it's just super simple to ride. It's nice and light, so you can move it around easily. Everything's like really obvious and dead easy to ride. The second big positive for me, if I don't get hit by an oncoming car, so the second big positive for me is how durable and how well this thing's stood up. Like I say, it's obviously led a pretty hard life as this thing, and yet it's still running and still absolutely runs perfectly. And the third positive for me is that it has a reasonable amount of storage. Because like I said before, it's not a big scooter, and a lot of the smaller ones have absolutely tiny storage or none whatsoever, things like the Honda Waves. So onto the negatives. So the biggest one is suspension. Could be an age thing, of course. Well, an age and maintenance. But yeah, once you go in over sort of 50 kilometers an hour, just a road like this that isn't terrible, it's not great either, but it's not terrible. It's just not much fun. You find yourself hanging on for dear life sometimes. Other negatives, the LCD part of the dashboard, like I say, is pretty unreadable. I think it's faded so much and had so much sunshine that really it's difficult to read. I can just see it now we're in the shade, but as soon as any sunlight goes on it, you just can't read it at all. Thankfully there's nothing important on that gauge, although I guess temperature's fairly important. But yeah, that's about it for negatives. Like I say, I think this thing's done well considering its age, miles, maintenance, etc. It's still running and it's not let me down in over 2 months now. Maybe the other negative I'd add is what I mentioned before about the brakes, that the brakes could be a bit better. So that's it for this week. Just a short review to give you my impressions of this little Yamaha. Hope you found that useful. Do give it a like and subscribe to the channel for other videos and other riding reviews. And if you've got any questions or comments, please just add them below. So thanks again for watching and see you again next week.